All right, ladies and gentlemen, inviting the speakers on stage, I would like to welcome Miss Valeria, CEO and founder, FONDY. She's not here? All right. Mr. Pramod Ganji, founder and CEO, Zrika. Mr. Avinash Ramesh, managing director and CEO, Zaggle. Mr. Uttam Dave, chairman, iStreet Network. And to moderate this, I request Mr. Vipul Jain, senior partner, AZB and partners to please join me on stage. Day two and the last session, I am sure this is going to be a very interactive and knowledgeful one. So over to you. Looking forward. Thank you.
Hello. So, thank you very much. And before we start, maybe each of you would like to just introduce yourselves.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Avinash Godkhindi. I'm the managing director and CEO of Zaggle. We are a spend management company. We are a listed, profitable spend management company where we work with over 3,500 corporates and we have more than 3 million users and 19 partner banks where we offer solutions like travel and expense for employees. We do employee benefits. We do vendor payouts. We do employee rewards and channel rewards and a variety of other things. Thank you.
Thank you, Avinash. My name is Uttam Dave. I am the chairman and whole-time director at iStreet Networks. It's a BSE listed company. The objective of our company or the journey what we have had so far with the mentors like D. Padmanabhan, who was a core banking architect, and so Mr. Gopal Krishnan, who was a RBI ED and a cybersecurity policy maker for the banking system. And what we are trying to do is not trying. In fact, we've been working for on GenAI and AML space for almost 10 plus years, and we are right now globally positioned number one, number two in the 3 billion use cases or data sets where how you will be able to get structured data and how securely you will be able to exchange this data. That is where we are focusing. This is where the subject is today. And in the bargain, we know that it's a rail track where GenAI is just started, where there are too many companies here promoting and talking GenAI. Everyone has the intent of really moving the data and economy. And that's where we feel that we will be the leaders in while creating a AI COE, Center of Excellence for tech companies under the leadership of D. Padmanabhan and Gopal Krishna sir, where they are the experts in the policy as well as the use cases. That's where we will be able to create or make more predictable journey for banking system, governance, and people of the country. And at the same time, make it more secure and trusted exchange of data to really navigate the issues probably we are going to discuss today.
Hi, my name is Pramod Ganji. I'm the founder and CEO of a company called as Zrika. We are a next-gen fintech company. We are doing the same thing that you've been seeing, which is helping merchants to make payments and receive payments. But we've also done is we've used a lot of AI and ML in the entire journey. One of our hero product for which we just did a launch this morning was Zrai Shield, which is our FRM product. So as an organization, we understand that there are a lot of players in the market who have been trying to solve the seamlessness of payments. But for us, we feel that security is the most important aspect, and that's the reason why we focused more on how the transactions are going to flow, how the data is going to flow over a period of time. And yeah, that is it about us. We are a 1.5-year-old company, and we are looking forward to make a bigger impact in this industry. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. My name is Vipul. I'm a senior partner with AZB and Partners, India's premier law firm. I lead their fintech and financial services practice. I think the theme for this discussion is very topical in the sense that data to dollars, the revenue opportunity in today's open data economy. First of all, behooves the question, what exactly is an open data economy, right? Generally, open data is understood to mean data that can be accessed by anyone. It can be used and shared. Typically, it involves non-personal data or de-identified data and information. Aggregated anonymized data are subsets which would perhaps fall within this. And an open data economy, to that extent, therefore, refers to ecosystems where this data can be discovered, accessed, combined, and reused at scale to generate new products and to fuel innovation. It generally lowers barriers to entry for new businesses by reducing proprietary information advantages and enables product and service innovation through reuse and combination. India, prima facie, is an economy which is looking at developing a model or developing an ecosystem for open data. We had the establishment of open data, open government data platform by the government of India, and it's one of the government's primary initiatives. I think a couple of years ago in 2022, MeitY had also released a draft national data governance framework, but this was never implemented, right? So I think the first question to this panel would be, given how an open data and open data economy is generally understood, what is your take on where we are today as a country, as an economy? Do we actually have a robust open data economy? Are we moving towards it? What would you recommend be done to actually achieve that?
Yeah, can I take this? Okay. So, in a very simple sense, for me, the definition of open data is where you have access, a very easy access, an exchange of data between individuals, between banks, between government institutions. So there is no barrier as such in terms of exchange of information. So that's basically my simple understanding of what open data is all about. And when it comes to the India initiative or where we are in terms of open data policies or data management, I think we are there. I mean, we are not completely there, but we've seen a lot of institutions, a lot of government initiatives by which a lot of data is collected and it is securely stored and it is used for the right reasons also. Like for example, we have UPI, we have DigiLocker, we have Aadhaar, etc. So it is there, but the only challenge here is that all of this data is managed in bits and pieces. So, in my opinion, I feel that we should have a single institution who is managing all of this data, and there has to be some regulatory in terms of what is the amount of information that someone can access, what is the way or the way of taking consent, and what is the amount of information that can be shared based on the consent that is being received. So yes, we are there. But we are not there in comparison to the other yeah, countries like EU, etc. But I think more or less with DPDP coming in place and we get a lot of clarity in terms of how data is going to be stored, I think we'll make phenomenally well in terms of data management.
Right. So same thoughts, but yeah, I think because one of the first thing is obviously Vipul asked open data, whether it is really, what is open data? I mean, really right now, I would say as a country we have progressed in terms of really collecting the data digitally, whether it is for identification or whether it is for banking system or whether it's for business, which is an example of GST. I mean, for example, obviously we are deliberating the taxation and all that, but percentage and all that, but practically we have collected a lot of digital data, and it is not easy. About 140 crore people and collecting this data, and we are leaders. A lot of countries are not even reach some of these points where they are able to collect. In fact, we still have a lot of work to do in collecting data because we've been close in understanding some of the data. But yeah, I think I'll take it up in the next point as Vipul, and we will deliberate because practically, yes, the data is available, digital form is available. Now we need to make sure that how secured and how securely we are able to move this data and use this data for the benefit of people, governance, and the financial system, not only in the country, across the globe.
I agree with both Pramod and Uttam. Just to add, I think the conceptually pure open data economy is a mirage. Okay, there cannot be a completely open data economy because there are privacy concerns, there are national security concerns. So it's a very complex topic actually. So the healthy balance has to be found. Having said that, I think India has done a great job. If you look at the India Stack, Aadhaar, Open, ONDC, lots of these platforms have been created on a central government level, where we are seeing a lot of initiatives now being taken. And I just spent some time with my alma mater, University of Chicago. We had a 3-day event, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and the University of Chicago itself is working with government of Odisha, government of Andhra Pradesh, to do a lot of work around data which the state governments hold, right? And this includes data and democratization of data like weather. Now, for farmers, this was extremely heartening and interesting to see that in Odisha, the government is now using multilingual channels to be able to communicate to farmers about the impending weather pattern changes. So, for example, if there's a sudden storm or a cyclone or something that's coming in, they're using AI and other modes of technology to be able to communicate this information through multiple platforms like SMSs, voice messages, etc., to farmers. So, as you're able to now democratize data at multiple levels, central government, state government, and then soon we will go further down onto municipalities or corporations, which also hold a lot of our data. Think of any real estate transaction today, there's still so much paper, right? Just the registration of a house has certain amount of paper that's required. It's much better in a state like Maharashtra, but in many states, the registration itself is a process. When it comes to private sector, it's always going to be a tug of war. Every private company or bank would want to hold on to its data, and as a nation, we would want that to be democratized. So I think two things: the ownership of the data ultimately lies with the entity, individual or corporate, as in corporation which is giving that data. And the other thing, I think, as long as the rules of engagement are very clear, and I think DPDP is great. We are a GDPR certified company. And now with DPDP coming in, it will become even more clear what you can do, what you cannot do. And that's always good in the long run, because then you're able to weed out the bad actors.
Thank you. I think that was very insightful. Like Avinash very rightly pointed out, there's no one size fits all. Can we say that we've arrived as an open data economy? The answer is definitely no. But there will have to be subsets which will have to be evaluated carefully. When it is looked at with a finer microscope, there will be personal data, there will be non-personal data, and there's a huge monetization opportunity available vis-a-vis non-personal data, as long as appropriate safeguards and guardrails are available, right? Monetization of personal data, of course, there will be challenges, and like Avinash said, it ultimately boils down to who's the owner of that data. It's a misnomer to say that a corporation which is collecting the data is the owner of that data. They are nothing more than a fiduciary. They are the trusted organization to safekeep that data. The owner is actually the principal who then gets to decide where, how, and when that data has to be used. So therefore, it's a concept which is definitely developing in this country, and with the advent of DPDP is certainly getting tested. So with that, I think it's a good pivot to the next question, which was, basis the experience of our esteemed panelists, what do you think are effectively going to be the pros and cons of an open data economy, right? Practically, what do you think will have to be considerations to be borne in mind by not just the government, but by industry participants and players as we move towards trying to establish an open data economy?
Oh, so I'll just answer this because I've been waiting since the time Avinash put that at farmer point, because that's my core. Because I believe that we are talking of corporates ROI, let's talk of farmers ROI. Because in 1 acre of land, what he can produce and how he can scale his business is more important, because that will bring the chain right. Also getting the more predictability on how and what. So of course, like Avinash said, the government and the tools, we are collecting data, and like people also say the data collection agency is there. But how do you do interoperability and make it more predictable? And that is where I come from, the farmer side, that okay, this is where the weather data is being collected, the soil data is being collected, the seed data is being collected through GST. Now GST is a weapon where government has done fantastic job by collecting the data of all the businesses. Now that itself is a base from where you can actually start moving the chain from right from your weather to even fertilizers to your e-way bills, that the movement happening to through a lot of logistics. So you have the entire chain. Now you can really go down and predict that, okay, farmer, go and please sow onions and not this. I am coming from the root because that is where getting the first right data is important. And then you make it more predictable. The right data is today, like today, I think we were discussing somebody outside that onions are getting wasted in Karnataka today. Now, this is where I'm coming from. Either a country needs it, some other country where I do a charity or I really help them, or I really cross-sell to a country's emerging market where I know this wastage doesn't happen. I have a real-time visibility. I tell a farmer that please don't sow this because I already have this field with my data analysis. You better do potato or tomato or any other grain, depending on all these analytics we do. So my point here is that yes, this data collection first itself is important in the right form, and that when the farmer itself start moving the chain of economy, every chain will start moving. But yes, where Vipul's point comes, that how do you protect and make it more private, because not it is when open data means not every data is available to everyone, and how to utilize it for every businesses. So that's where I feel that today we will have to get more deeper. Despite all this has reached some stage where we are trying to say, okay, this data is there. Now we want to make a resilient data and also make it more governed or regulated, because every country has different regulation. Vipul has all this complete. I am sure he has more insight that, okay, there is a lot he has faced or understood around various countries. So it is not going to be easy having only one. And that is where I come from, that background that we have a Gen AI which is actually predicting a lot of the data which is collected. And we are going closer and closer. Gen AI is going to be rail trail. It's not going to be that aaj itni companies, whoever is actually publishing all Gen AI use cases, they will take time to really make it more predictable. It's not that tomorrow, whatever we deliver is going to be lifetime. It's going to be learning, and it is going to be it is going to last beyond our lifetime to our kids or anybody, because that's where the use cases will refine. That's where the data will come in a real structured and a predictable form. And then it is about regulating and protecting it, to using the data for people to build their value system and economy, for government to do the predictive governance, ensure that all this data, though again, now how do I really use it to make it more predictive analytics to run the government and the financial system. So these are the three areas I feel we have covered, where we are saying, okay, banking system, we've seen the challenges right from UPI. Now digitization has really helped, but today it has also added the risk, where the number of frauds which are happening, because of course digitization helped, but now we have to protect. Because how do I protect? So we did a demonetization by just changing the note, which was right pattern because that was needed. And probably just to protect, first thing we need to do is have that single identity for a user or a corporate, that okay, this is one identity and I know how it will function. Whether it is Aadhaar, today Aadhaar is being used as a identity and not as a system to actually understand person's wealth. It is only identity. But of course we have PAN. But again, PAN, you and me have given so many signatures to PAN cards. And so many of our copies are floating in the market, I don't know. So that's where we are actually, where the question comes, that how do you protect all these and how safe it is. So we are really getting closer to that why not change the 4 digit of Aadhaar number only, just like demonetization, and just come to, and no change is required. User will not get impacted. The banking system will really take it up, and it will be centralized. That's what our thought, and we are working towards it. We are working closely with even ministries and on-ground government to understand user se leke, right from the user, from people on the ground to the financial or the corporates to the governance, how it really helps not only in India, outside, because we are not talking India, we are talking of global economy from data to dollar. And while everyone is focusing on dollars, let's get our worth, jo farmer ka, the ecosystem what we're building, the land bank, how can we actually leverage predictably and make it more secure. This is only one example, But every industry has this practice, predictably, and we are working. And on technology side, I think we are more, as iStreet, we have really designed, we have made, like we already mentioned, so there are billions of use cases we have already designed, and we are improving day by day. And on the security side, of course, how privately we can move, of course, government has to play part. They have to come forward, and we are also, all of us are, I think, working towards this same solution, and we'll make it more predictable and make that single identity data more useful, so that if I change the Aadhaar, for example, I'm just sharing, if I change those 4 digits, it actually kills the rest of the copies gone in the public of mine, So many copies are gone on my identity. At least straight away I get one change, and the rest is mitigated. Then work on the predictable data more. So this is what my thoughts are. Of course, we all can. We in fact हमने इससे तो ज़्यादा बार बात कर लिया. But I think yes, it requires deliberation of a lot of minds, and that's why as iStreet we are building 51 companies of Gen AI, or that is one number, but I feel that we will require a lot of brain around Gen AI, will require a lot of brain around compliance, will require a lot of brain around resiliency, and then no one company can do it. It will require consortium, experts on the legal side, finance side, and that's why we have these mentors who are on the top, and we are trying to build that chain and trying to really fund those companies, new startups who can have ideas, even IIT students who have ideas, come back, and we have mentors who can really build those use cases and really help the economy model from data to dollar. So this is what I felt, but I think the more thoughts will be.
Yeah. So quickly, just take an example of an account aggregator framework, right? Yesterday we were at the RBI session, and the last part was largely dictated by what the unit economics of the AA framework is and how those companies are trying to become profitable. So one of the things when we are looking at benefits, pros and cons of the open data economy or open data systems is also to understand what is the incentives of the players, different players within the ecosystem. Because a lot of the large players who are sitting with large private players who are sitting with large data sets may not be wanting to expose their data at all. It is their USP, it is their differentiation. So how can regulation, depending on the importance of the data, decide whether it should be mandatory for them to share it? And if it is made mandatory, what is the monetization on that data that they get for having collected that data? Because it's very easy for us to say that, hey, a large bank today, should open up its data, which it has collected for, maybe decades, and make it free for all the other new participants. But I don't think that's necessarily a very fair model, because those institutions have spent a lot of time, effort, energy, money to collect that data. So what's the monetization model? I think this framework of understanding incentives and what is the monetization of different players within the value chain is a very critical aspect to keep in mind. Especially because as a nation, I always say this, by habit or by nature, we are a free country. We are not a fee country, right? So we by propensity is to make it free. And I'll give you an example, right? Today UPI is ubiquitous. The reason is it was made free, so everybody used it. And you can think of your own personal lives. There are umpteen number of examples where we see a geo data connection, really revolutionized how access to data is in this country, and how 4G, 3G, 5G penetration has moved, primarily because a lot of geo handsets and connections were deeply subsidized or free. So that when that is the nature of the behavior of the users and even companies, then you need to even more minutely think, what do I compensate the person who has collected that data? How do I compensate that person? What's the price? What's a fair price? So some guardrails need to be set up there. And as long as that is done, I think an open data economy can be very beneficial even for institutions who have collected a lot of data.
Yeah, so taking you from both of them, and so I'll just speak out of my own experience. For us, I feel the pros of having data is that you can actually take a lot of decisions. Like for example, at at Zrika as well, having access to data has helped us speed up our onboarding process also to almost 5x. You are also able to identify the genuinity of a transaction. Okay, so that's at the company level. But personally, if you ask me, at an individual level also, having data is going to help you at your life level also, right? So like for example, this ring that I'm wearing is capturing a lot of data about me, right? And it is also helping me understand whether I'm living a healthy life or non-healthy life. What are the pros? How do I better my lifestyle? Okay, how do I be conscious about things, etc. So data, according to me, is the best thing when it comes to identifying an opportunity and trying to work towards the right way. But then there are also some cons to it, or maybe some reservations we can say. My biggest concern when it comes to data is what is the data and how much of it is shared. That is one of the concern, which is related to privacy. Second is monopoly. Okay, there may be a possibility that there are some large institutions who've got all the data with them, and as sir also rightly mentioned, would they have the intent to share it, or how the regulators will ensure that it is made mandatory to share, etc. So that is a second concern. Then there is also a concern of cybersecurity, because if you are the one who's actually holding data, then as an institution, you cannot look at ROI. You have to make sure that you're investing in the cyber security, you're doing certain certifications, you're doing encryption mechanisms, etc. So there is going to be a huge difference in terms of the cost that you're incurring in maintaining that data versus how are you going to actually create ROI out of it. So these are just some of the cons that I've identified. All in all, this is my say.
No, no, extremely. Hello. So that's extremely insightful. I think that also opens up questions in terms of, like I said initially, data is not the property of an organization. Data is actually the property of the data principal, right? So can somebody force my data to be transferred to somebody who I don't want the data to be transferred, right? For instance, if I've given my data to one particular bank, can the government force that bank for my private data to be transferred to all the other banks? So those are constitutional questions also which come to fore, which will have to be evaluated. And therefore, when we talk about themes such as open data, it's very important to understand that there will be different sets of rules, different sets of touch points vis-a-vis different sets of data. I think today, if I look at it from a legalistic perspective, the way at least our country is moving forward is when it comes to personal data, they're very clear that the rights have to be vested with the principal. That is what the DPDP is envisaging on the lines of GDPR. But when it comes to non-personal data, if you will remember a couple of years ago, as a part of the draft DPDP legislation, the government had actually mooted including non-personal information also as a part of the DPDP legislation, right? And there was a lot of pushback from the industry saying that why should non-personal data, which doesn't identify the individual, be subject to the same yardsticks as personal information? That was subsequently removed. So I think we can have a very robust ecosystem when it comes to non-personal information, with of course necessary guardrails that you can't decrypt that data to get to the personal information. You can't reverse engineer to get to that. There should not be a monopoly like the panelists have mentioned. There should be appropriate sharing such that there is betterment for the entire industry, so to speak. But at the same time, having extremely robust mechanisms when it comes to the personal information, such that that is not really monetized by an actor without the consent of the principal himself or herself, right? So, with that background, just want to hear the panelists' thoughts on what and how they perceive the new data legislations to be and what their impact on the industry are going to be, coupled with not just the central legislation, but also you would have seen that the sectoral regulators are now taking a very hard stand on personal information, insurance information, payments data, etc. So we've got localization done by the Reserve Bank of India for a while now. Earlier it was only payments data. Now even lending data in terms of digital lending transactions, the same yardsticks are being applied. Insurance regulator is prescribing the same thing. We've got Aadhaar data, which can only be stored in India, can't be stored outside. So what do you think about all of these developments in the context of data, in the context of monetization, in the context of how we are developing as a data concerned economy?
So I think, firstly, I fully agree with you. The individual owns her data, right? And it's her right to consent whether this is shared across different institutions. The, the, the duty of the institution which has collected the data is that that institution makes it easy for her to give consent to be able to share it across board, right? And not hoard that information. So I think the DPDP Act is a step in that direction, a very good step, a correct step. As a GDPR certified company, we already adhere to all these, principles. And DPDP is slightly different, I understand, from GDPR, but largely the guiding principles are the same. With regards to data localization, etc., some of this is dictated by geopolitics as well, right? What's happening around the world, some of the actions that certain governments took post certain wars where assets of different countries were frozen, which were denominated in certain currencies, really changed the thought process of even what the reserve currency is and how money is stored, right? There are other examples where, a country built for a large continent their whole building for the council, and this was in 2012, you can Google it up. The building was a gift along with all the servers, etc. The servers had, in 2016 or 18, the engineers of that continent's, that building saw that that data was being transmitted and sent to another country. It was all the voice and data records. And then they had to actually sanitize the whole building, right? So there is a lot of information that is being collected, and some of it is being shared across the borders by certain, certain actors whose intent is not correct, right? So regulation and laws which are clearly defined, however they may sound to be onerous or difficult at the get-go, in the medium to long term, as long as those regulations are reasonably fair, actually make it very clear what can be done and what cannot be done. And it is good for all ecosystem players who are entering into the arena with a good intent. Because you know the rules of engagement, you know the rules of play, and you can define your business models accordingly. As long as those rules don't change at the drop of a hat, at the whims and fancies of certain individuals or entities, I think that's a very good thing, right? And similarly, data localization in India, now every player has sort of adapted to it. You see this trend, what RBI was one of the pioneers, has been increasingly adopted by almost all countries today, right? What RBI started maybe 6, 7, 8 years ago, now literally every country is saying, I want my data to be stored in my jurisdiction. So I think it's a natural consequence of how the world has evolved.
I think it's important to, yes, there are two factors. One is like Vipul said, individual should have right to where and how he shares the data. But I think the same problem, I keep repeating that, okay, we had one farmer example. Let's talk about our real life example of we buying insurance. Okay, how much we predict and how much we understand what we are buying. So if we don't know what we are buying, okay, practically we ourselves, I'm sure, yeah, whoever is sitting here, we have 3, 4 policies, and we are just buying because there is some protection we need, right? And how do you get more predictable? So that's where GenAI come into picture, that of course you have one layer of data, which is at least you have collected one level. Of course you need to collect more, be more predictable. But now you have one layer of data. Let's do machine learning, let's do analysis. Right. So that's where I come with IndiMedi, where I do medical AI, where I know that, okay, and this is what my body graph, this is what I suggest where I am, and this is my health pattern, and this is what I should eat, and this is what I should take as an insurance. If I have that kind of a Alexa on a voice that, okay, Uttam, this is what you are and you should only buy this. So this chain is right, I'm not only talking for, I'm talking of getting predictable data from ourselves itself first. अगर हम ही if we are able to give the right data, then we get into the next layer of really monetizing and really, so yes, we need to monetize, but what will happen is right now we'll start monetizing what we have, or we'll start collecting more unstructured data and start monetizing. And that's where my point comes, that let's get down to the user and say that, okay, first you become predictable, first you say this is my data, this is my accurate data. Because if my accurate, like farmer cannot say what he wants, man. So today, like you said, that farmer, government is doing too many things and asking yaar kya karna hai. But practically, I should give a solution. Don't go there. I have GST data. Let me play and tell you what you should saw right now. And that, if you earn 5,000 or 10,000, then my economy will anyways leak. So that's where I am coming from. Of course, this topic needs a good, more deliberation from a lot of brilliant minds, because it's not about talking India, it's talking about global. And data is where India has strength. 140 crore people, it's our strength and weakness in many zones. But strength is huge because the number of transactions what we have done over the years and number of businesses have expanded through GST data collection. Of course, now we need to play it more with regularity, compliance, and also make sure that it is consent based. So that's where I submit on this.
In the interest of time, I'll just keep it a little short. While there is a huge scope in terms of what all we can do in terms of data protection, open data policies, etc., I think one of the most basic thing that we have to work towards is keeping the consumer aware about what is taken out of him in terms of data. And the second most important is the education part of it. Because I'm sure, forget about people who are non-tech savvy, even in the tech savvy space, you do not have the visibility in terms of what amount of data is shared with whom, right? You must have given your data randomly to every institution. You are signing up randomly, but you do not know what is the data that they're capturing, right? So that is one of the things that we need to work on. And second is the awareness, the education. Like for example, we were a cash-heavy economy, then came mobile technologies, internet got accessible, you got UPI, and then people started learning about how do you make digital payments, and that's the reason why we got this push into digital economy. And the similar kind of an experience needs to happen when it comes to data management. And all of this will only start from educating the end consumer and making him aware. Because even today, to be very honest, I am myself very scared about where am I giving my data and what is going to happen with this, right? So these are the two spaces where I feel we should focus on, apart from, of course, whatever we have done.
So I think just one thing to add to, in addition to everything which has been very rightly said, wearing a commercial hat here, people get a little frazzled when they hear about commercialization, monetization of data, right? I personally don't think there is anything wrong in it. We must understand that, yes, it is an asset. As long as it's ethical and responsible monetization within the four walls of what is legally permitted, right? There is nothing wrong in it. Okay, so keeping those guardrails, keeping those boundary conditions in mind, if something can be monetized well, that's good for everybody involved, because there is also an investment cost in terms of handling, assimilating, and actually taking care of that data. Yeah. So I think with that, unless the panelists have anything else to add, we can take questions.
Too many things. They should sit. Fine, of course. Questions are welcome.